Chaz Chambliss was a successful starter on a good Georgia team, so why isn't there more fanfare around this guy? Let's learn everything we possibly can on the Everyman Series on the Locked On Vikings podcast.
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
They say that silence is a great indicator of the strength of a relationship. Essentially, if you can sit in silence with somebody and not feel the need to force a conversation, not feel the need to, fill that silence, but instead just enjoy each other's company quietly and in peace, then that's how you know that you're like truly comfortable with that person. And that is precisely what was happening on a lake. I don't know which one specifically, but around due west of Atlanta, around the border of Georgia and Alabama, between a father and a son. And as the sun rose, that silence became a core memory for Chaz Chambliss. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast, where we're always trying to learn something new. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And thank you so much to my hashtag everydayers who listen to this show every single day. And you are rewarded with the Everyman Series, which happens May, June, July every year, where we go over the backstories and personalities of every new Minnesota Viking. And in total, we will have gone over everybody on the 90 over the years. Today, we're talking about Chaz Chambliss, the, we'll call him linebacker out of Georgia. Chaz Chambliss starts every day with a cup of coffee. The reason for this is when he was a kid, his dad would take him hunting and would say, hey, you don't get a buck unless you've had your morning coffee. And he was a kid. He didn't like coffee. But one day he decided he never got a buck. So one day he decided he was going to try the coffee. He drinks the coffee. He goes out and that day he gets a buck. From then on, every day, cup of coffee. This is very funny when, this particular anecdote happened in like high school. And so it's very funny, even in college, it's like he like drinks black coffee, like he's like a 40-year-old sales associate as like this college kid, but everybody kind of laughs at him. But young Chaz Chambliss took quite a lot of these types of lessons from his dad, Cliff, who was a drill sergeant for like 20 years. So you kind of get a sense for how that household was. It was one, like he would tell a story. There's this video from him I think his high school produced, where they're asking him about what it's like to have a drill sergeant for a dad. And you can tell that there's like a million stories of him doing some stupid nonsense he wasn't supposed to be doing until dad got home. He's a drill sergeant, disciplinarian. He'd come home with the big, like, park rangery, like drill sergeant hat, like the full metal jacket kind of thing. You know what I'm talking about? You can barely see his eyes, but you still know that, like, if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing right now, you're in trouble. This was the kind of environment. So you get this like military, this discipline kind of thing that sort of seeps into everything. There's going to be a bunch of anecdotes about like work ethic and discipline and stuff, but you get this very like kind of straight ahead, locked into a task and, no fear of like the iteration of it. And that is like how you get good at stuff is you do something. I mean, you're 10,000 hours, right? You do something over and over and over and over again. And that's like how and it like that particular thing comes really easy to Chaz Chambliss. And that's the drill sergeant thing. The other thing you got to know here is this is the countryest of country boys that you will ever know. I mean, we've already have a hunting and a fishing story in this thing. He's from Carrollton, Georgia, it's not the most rural place. It's like a 25,000 person city, but that ain't a big city. So he's from, a mid to low sized town in the South. He has a thick accent. In videos, it's kind of interesting. In videos that there's a lot of interviews of this guy. I think with anybody who goes to Georgia, you're going to UGA, like there's going to be a feature on you just about every 12 seconds. So you can hear interviews of him like as a recruit, as a high schooler who's trying to like put his name out there for these schools, all the way up to interviews, his senior season after he has a 2-sack game against Tennessee. He is like unintelligible in high school. It's like Boomhauer. Like it is like really like thick accent. And then as he's in college, it sort of wears off, which I find fascinating from like an anthropology angle, like just the way that humans organize themselves is interesting. It's a totally crazy tangent, but like it seems to me that, you know, the more like homogenous your world is, the more that you are around. I'm just talking accents wise. The more you have an accent and you're around a lot of people with the other accent, those accents will intensify. And then the more like diverse your surroundings are, I think your accents will kind of chill out because you hear a lot of people talk a whole lot, like a lot of different ways. And so no particular verbal tick will like latch onto your brain necessarily. It's something that I noticed happened to me. I used to have a little bit of a Minnesota accent, and then I went to college in Los Angeles around a whole bunch of people that did not have that and that talked with all kinds of different accents. And it kind of like wore off. I don't know. Anyways, this is a like country boy with a military dad. Like you're starting to get a vision here. By the way, early bloomer, totally jacked when he shows up in like 8th grade spring ball. He looks like a senior already. Like he's just like totally ripped. There's all kinds of pictures you can find of him, like especially when he first shows up to Georgia, where he's just like absolutely freaking ripped. He just looks like a bunch of circles in a tank top. Like it's crazy. And that all business determination, where it's a little bit like fine dining and breathing. Like it's a little bit like everything else in the world has, for people over 40, everybody else in the world, or like everything else in the world has gone away, and you have like your few things that you know how to do, and that's like your whole life. There is this great anecdote about this from high school, where they're having a Sadie Hawkins dance, and a girl comes up to him to ask him to the Sadie Hawkins dance. And she's like, hey, yeah, you want to go to this with me? And he's like, what are you talking about? This is from a Dog Nation interview. I'll link it in the show notes. Please yell at me if I forget. And so he says, like, what are you talking about? And she says, yeah, are you going to the Sadie Hawkins dance? And he's like, who's Sadie Hawkins? I don't know who that is. And she definitely didn't invite me to her party, so probably not. But this is the kind of like vibe that you get like throughout college. Like he couldn't give one crap about like social media. He is not in any of that. Like he is just there to like play football and sometimes go fishing. And like, that's life. You can gather that sort of athleticism, that sort of work ethic, every coach is like, this is the hardest worker I've ever been around, is going to make you a 4-star recruit, especially when you're in the South and there's no problem getting eyeballs on you. And he'll go to Georgia to a lot of fanfare. And at Georgia, around that same time, this very simple, straightforward world is about to get a lot more complex. That'll be next on Locked On Vikings. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Have you ever looked at your bank account and been like, oops, where did everything go? What happened? It happens, okay? This happened to me not long ago. But it can happen. Like, look, eating out and online shopping and all of it's so easy to just enter your credit card into a bunch of things and totally lose track of how your money is getting spent. That's where Monarch Money comes in. You can think of it as your own personal CFO, a complete financial command center. More than just a budgeting app, it can help you track accounts, investments, and spending all in one place, so you can stop just managing your money and actually start focusing on building wealth. They have all kinds of insights about your spending, so you can maybe figure out where to cut back, all in one convenience for a whole bunch of other financial apps you might have. All of those functions all in one place with tracking investments, budgeting, and so on, and even easy collaboration so that if you do have a joint account with somebody, you can help plan and there's no confusion, no stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off of your first year. Around the time that Chaz Chambliss is committed to and excited about going to Georgia, his dad, Cliff, will suffer a stroke, and within 10 months, he will pass away from complications. One of the last memories that Chaz Chambliss has with his dad is that scene that we started with, fishing sitting in silence and just enjoying each other's quiet company. It's a powerful enough image that it will serve partially as the inspiration for a sleeve tattoo that he'll get later that year, that you can still see in a lot of pictures. You can look at it. It's like a father and son, and it's beautiful. It's hard for anyone when dad dies, right? Like that's never going to be an easy thing for anyone to deal with. But with this in particular, Cliff Chambliss was a larger than life figure. I mean, the way they talk about him, and even from interviews that are before his passing, it felt a little bit like you're hearing about like a TV dad from the 50s where they have this like superpower to solve any problem that you could possibly come to them with. And that they, are just like, he looked up to his dad in a really special way. And it seemed like they had a really special relationship that was founded on a lot of respect. He talks about the strict drill sergeant thing and how, it's not just about being strict. It's about having principles, maybe. And one of those principles is discipline. And that discipline will graft onto Chaz in a way, everybody will graft something from their father. I did have my dad on the show once. You can listen. We talked the same way, and a lot of his values are my values now. And I think that's probably a case that many of you can relate to. But after his dad passes away, those lessons etch in stone. And so it's not going to surprise you that the work ethic becomes the main selling point here for Chaz Chambliss. Kirby Smart will go into his office after practice and like do some, and when he leaves his office after practice, after doing all the stuff, watching the practice film and coming up with a plan for tomorrow or whatever, like whatever he's doing in his office, he comes out and Chaz Chambliss is still there on the field doing one-on-ones with Brock Bowers, their freshman year. He's on the sled for hours, just working, just getting hits in, working pass rush moves, working his like extensions, his pad level, his leverage. He's just out there doing it. Nolan Smith, who is a starter senior at this time, he's like a junior starter at this time, will sort of take Chaz Chambliss under his wing and become something of a mentor figure about him. And so for the first couple of years, Chaz is buried behind Nolan Smith specifically. He's playing the same position as Nolan Smith. They call it that jack position, which you might know in the Kirby Smart defense, which for this story, you kind of have to know. I usually try not to get too X's and O's on this. But you kind of have to understand that like the jack position is a bit of a tweener thing. It's, very Anthony Barr. Almost. It's a linebacker first and foremost, but they do kind of get in on pass rush a lot. Or maybe call it a Micah Parsons role for a more modern example, because Anthony Barr didn't come out like with the position that he had in Minnesota. It was sort of tailored to him. But it's a little bit more like Micah Parsons. And it's what Michael Williams has played in the last, like if you studied him this year. So that's the position that we're like working with. And Nolan Smith will take him under his wing, teach him the ropes, teach him how to do stuff. And of course, Nolan Smith, first round draft pick. But he's buried behind a first round draft pick and he's a freshman. So it's pretty understandable. But that's going to be another thing that kind of comes out in all of this is the idea of, it is Georgia. It's Georgia's defense. There are a lot of people on Georgia's defense that are going to go first round. Chaz Chambliss was a depth player in 2021 Georgia, the national championship year, where I think all 11 starters got drafted and most of them were in the first round. That was the Lewis Seen year. But that was also, I think Quay Walker was on that team. Jalen Carter was on that team. There are some dudes. There's just not room for you, right? He'll get in the rotation, but for this reason, Chaz will kind of end up relegated to other duties. He'll be a special teamer. He'll be, sort of he's I'll do whatever you want coach. And of course, again, military dad, sir, yes, sir. You want me to do this? You got it. You want me to clean the toilets? I got it. You want me to play fullback? I got it. That does happen at some point, actually. So that's kind of the guy that he becomes on Georgia. But he won't get in a lot. And we'll have to spend a little bit of time, being the young depth, the up and coming. And then in 2021, Nolan Smith will get a pec injury, and an opportunity opens up for Chaz Chambliss. And then, of course, Nolan Smith will get drafted, and so 2022 is going to be his first year as a bona fide starter. That is where the expectations go up, but also new recruiting classes come in, and with it, new challenges. That'll be next on Locked On Vikings. By Chaz Chambliss' third year in Georgia, he'll be a very much captain and leader type. There is an article that's like, he feels like the old man again. That's really cute that like he's a third year player, but he kind of feels like because everybody left to the NFL after that 2021 season and more even, more even will leave later too, that he actually is one of the elder statesmen on the Georgia defense as it sort of turns over to its next chapter. And around the same time, he will get really into MMA. This is not a new concept this offseason on the Locked On Vikings podcast, the marriage of MMA and football. I wrote a whole big piece about it at Wide Left and did an episode. We were talking about it in the context of Will Fries, who has some of the same influences. But it's certainly not just a thing from me, right? Like this is something that a Georgia linebacker is getting into. Max Crosby talks about it all the time, and it just intuitively makes sense, right? Hand fighting, leverage, all that stuff. Chambliss is he takes to grappling to try to get, that better sense for being able to land his hands where he wants and then deny you the ability to land your hands where you want on me, and the leverage of it all. And he kind of takes to grappling here. It's something he's really good at because he's just a crazy athletic guy for where always like for the age that he's at, he's always been ahead, and he just has those kind of God-given talents to a degree. But again, you're at Georgia, and while you're a 4-star recruit, you're kind of surrounded a lot by 5-star recruits. And so in 2022, in comes Mykel Williams, who is going to be a first-round draft pick in the same year, after 3 years, while Chambliss is an undrafted free agent after 5. Like, this is just, he's a good athlete. This guy's different. And Mykel Williams will play Jack, so Chambliss will move all over the formation. It's what Georgia does, too. I mean, they've got a lot of guys that move all over the place. Mykel does, Javon Walker does, and by the way, Javon Walker and Chaz Chambliss become pretty close friends. He'll play Jack. He'll play the Mac linebacker, which is a sort of, I'll think of it as like an Eric Wilson, the first go-around Eric Wilson role, where he's kind of maybe he'll show up as the third linebacker in like certain, or like a Brian Asamoah 2022 role, where like he'll show up as the third linebacker sometimes in like passing situations. Maybe it's a blitz thing, maybe like a Jamin Davis, like what he did for the Vikings when he was on the Vikings for 2 seconds last year. In 2024, his hand will just be in the dirt. He'll just be like along the line spelling, Javon Walker and Jalen Walker. Was I calling him Javon Walker? That's I think a receiver from the Packers in the 2000s. No, Jalen Walker, and he'll, kind of spell him. He'll spell Mykel Williams. He'll be off the ball. He'll be in the dirt. He'll be blitzing over the A gap. He'll do all kinds of things, which probably makes sense why the Vikings were going to be extra interested in him and be the ones to, give him a chance there. And in 2022, in 2024, he'll do anything you want, and he'll do it enthusiastically. And, not only the special teams of it all, but like he will get in at fullback. You can look at the highlights for the Georgia-Tennessee game this year, and the sort of dagger touchdown right at the end of the game, and Nate Frazier 2-yarder with a number 32 lead blocking. Now they have a number 32 who is a running back on the offense, so it was kind of something that was like easy to miss. But the broadcast did point it out. I was like, wait a minute, and they did miss it initially, and then they were like, wait a minute, that's not that number 32. That guy has a sleeve tattoo. That's Chaz Chambliss lead blocking, and boy does he do it with like zeal. This is absolutely the kind of guy that will like so enthusiastically attack special teams that he could be like a total nobody from scrimmage and still carve out a career for himself. Like this is absolutely that. He has that sort of, just two brain cells, but point him in the right direction kind of thing. I should probably clarify, like from a football perspective, he's lauded as very football smart. He will be able to like get on the whiteboard and cut it up and say, well, they do this formation, which I think means that when they run split zone, their B gap is open. Like it's very much looking like that. And a lot of what Georgia did with him was try to figure out ways to blitz him. So he got really adept at like figuring out, well, where are the weaknesses? Where are the gaps that I can get? There's actually an interview headed into their playoff game this year against Notre Dame where he's like, yeah, I don't know. It's like, they're pretty sound. They don't really leave gaps open. So we're just going to have to like win some matchups. And sure enough, Georgia would lose that game. And it kind of felt like he called it. Not in direct enough terms to ever get him in trouble or anything like that. But I think he foresaw that, correctly identified a difficulty. And even though he's really a second team player by this point, because other athletes have just taken jobs, he's still very much like a captain and leader. And he is like vying for the sack lead for most of the year. He has 6.5 sacks and he gets them early. And it's actually like he has the sack lead on this team for a little while before the other guys sort of catch up and pass him. Which then leads to the question, why the heck isn't this guy getting more fanfare? He's a pretty good athlete. He's healthy. He's from a big school. He was productive. What's the deal? And if you've heard me on this show before, there's obviously, if he checks all those boxes, but teams still don't like him, there's kind of only one explanation left, which is they don't like the film. And I don't think it's anything, wrong with the way he approaches it or anything like that. There's this tweener thing with him because he sort of is the jack, the tweener guy. It's a little bit, well, he's not big enough to be an edge. He's not quick enough to cover and, be a linebacker. So what do we do? And that really sinks him. That's the main thing in like draft reports that seems to sink him. I think that there are other issues just on film that I didn't like dedicated spend a whole bunch of time, but I did watch some Tyrion Ingram Dawkins, which was often right next to or opposite the formation of Chaz Chambliss. And you could kind of see that when it came down to like it was pretty easy to keep him at a distance just based on size. And so those God-given talents are just starting to, the standard is raising, but his body ain't growing anymore. And that might be what it is. Or, maybe sometimes guys just fall out of the draft that shouldn't have fallen out of the draft. Look at Ivan Pace, right? He fell out of the draft for a size reason, and obviously that shouldn't have happened. He's an NFL starter now. And even if you don't like him as a starter, you probably don't think he should have gone undrafted. He's certainly better than some guys that are already off their teams that got drafted. If you ask Chaz about any of this, though, none of this is a problem. None of this is like a concern to him where he's like, complaining about his playing time or his role or anything like that. This dude is sir, yes, sir. Anything you need, coach, I'll go do it. He'll go be the equipment manager if you need him to. And, from his perspective, you got to remember, he is not thinking NFL draft, really. He's not thinking about his own stock his whole college career. Which, hey, that's a thing you got to specify now. Some guys do. And I personally don't really begrudge them that, but that's something that teams are going to like and coaches are going to like for sure. But also, it's going to mean that he's going to take on more humble work that won't get him noticed as much. So there is a bit of mystery to why Chaz Chambliss didn't get at least like a late round pick just off of, being the senior leader, Ben Gedeon stuff. Ben Gedeon was not looking like he wasn't the most exciting player. He was like captain and leader on a good Michigan team that went to a high bowl game. And it got him drafted. And who knows how that would have worked out. Of course, the concussion thing sucks, but that was enough. It doesn't take more than what Chaz Chambliss has done typically. But regardless, now he has to enter a crowded room as probably an outside linebacker kind of vying for the Dallas Turner type roles with guys that have a lot more fanfare around them, guys that have higher draft pedigrees from his same class, like Tyler Batty, who a lot of people, who I think ranked higher on the consensus board, or guys like Tyrion Ingram Dawkins, who I don't think will play the exact same role as you would put like a Chaz Chambliss in, but regardless is going to still be kind of taking up a roster spot, and who got more snaps than him at Georgia as his former teammate. And then, of course, a group that's already got a lot of pressure on it because Jonathan Grenard, Andrew Van Ginkel, and Dallas Turner are taking up 3 of the spots. So it's going to be an uphill battle, and it's going to be one that he's completely unfamiliar with. He's been the crazy athlete. I mean, he walked right onto his high school team and started right away because he was just already a crazy athlete as a 14-year-old. And he got in college right away as well because of what he was willing to take on those, and embrace and enthusiastically perform those tertiary special teamsy like roles that got him, and then was able to win those jobs because he attacked them with that militaristic vigor. But this is different. Maybe you could get on the field as a special teamer, and maybe that has to be his role. But no matter what the challenge is, it's not going to change much for Chaz Chambliss. He's going to get up in the morning, he's going to pour himself a big old cup of black coffee, and he's going to get to work. I'll see y'all tomorrow. And as always, Skull.